And now chapter 12, delivery of the message of Krishna to the gopis. When the gopis saw Uddhava, they observed that his features almost exactly resembled the features of Krishna, and they could understand that he was a great devotee of Krishna's. His hands were very long, and his eyes were just like the petals of the lotus flower. He was dressed in yellow garments and wore a garland of lotus flowers. His face was very beautiful, having achieved the liberation of Sarupya, and thus having the same bodily features as the Lord. Uddhava looked almost like Krishna. In Krishna's absence, the gopis had been coming dutifully to visit Mother Yashoda's house early in the morning. They knew that Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda were always grief-stricken, and they had made it their first duty to come and pay their respects to the most exalted elderly personalities of Vrindavan. Seeing the friends of Krishna, Nanda and Yashoda would remember Krishna himself and be satisfied, and the gopis also would be pleased by seeing Nanda and Yashoda. When the gopis saw that Uddhava was representing Krishna, even in his bodily features, they thought he must be a soul completely surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They began to contemplate, who is this boy who looks just like Krishna? He has the same eyes like lotus petals, the same raised nose and beautiful face, and he is smiling in the same way. In all respects, he resembles Krishna, Shyamasundara, the beautiful blackish boy. He is even dressed exactly like Krishna. Where has this boy come from? Who is the fortunate girl who has him for her husband? Thus they talked among themselves. They were very anxious to know about him, and because they were simply unsophisticated village girls, they surrounded Uddhava. When the gopis understood that Uddhava had a message from Krishna, they became very happy and called him to a secluded place to sit down. They wanted to talk with him very freely and did not want to be embarrassed before unknown persons. They began to welcome him with polite words in great submissiveness. We know that you are a most confidential associate of Krishna, and that he has therefore sent you to Vrindavan to give solace to his father and mother. We can understand that family affection is very strong. Even great sages who have taken to the renounced order of life cannot give up family members. Krishna has therefore sent you to his father and mother. Otherwise, he has no further business in Vrindavan. He is now in town. What does he have to know about Vrindavan village or the cows' pasturing grounds? These are not at all useful for Krishna, because he is now a man in the city. Surely he has nothing to do with persons who do not happen to be his family members. Friendships with those outside the family continue as long as there is some selfish interest in them. Otherwise, why should one bother about those outside the family, especially and specifically those who are attached as the wives of others? Krishna is interested in them as long as there is a need of sense gratification, like the bumblebees, who have interest in the flowers as long as they want to take the honey out of them. It is psychologically very natural that a prostitute does not care for her paramour as soon as he loses his money. Similarly, when the citizens find that a government is incapable of giving them full protection, they leave the country. A student, after finishing his education, gives up his relationship with the teacher and the school. A priest, after taking his reward from the worshipper, gives him up. When the fruit season is over, the birds are no longer interested in the tree. Just after eating in the house of the host, the guest gives up his relationship with him. After a forest fire, when there is a scarcity of green grass, the deer and other animals give up the forest. And so a man, after enjoying his girlfriend, gives up his connection with her. In this way, all the gopis indirectly accused Krishna by citing many similes. Uddhava understood that the gopis of Vrindavan were all simply absorbed in the thought of Krishna and his childhood activities. While talking about Krishna with Uddhava, they forgot all about their household business. They even forgot about themselves, as their interest in Krishna increased more and more. One of the gopis, namely Srimati Radharani, was so much absorbed in thoughts of Krishna by dint of her personal touch with him that she actually began to talk with a bumblebee which was flying there and trying to touch her lotus feet. While another gopi was talking with Krishna's messenger, Uddhava, Srimati Radharani took that bumblebee to be a messenger from Krishna and began to talk with it as follows. Bumblebee, you are accustomed to drinking honey from the flowers, and therefore you have preferred to be a messenger of Krishna, who is of the same nature as you. I have seen on your mustaches the red powder of kunkun, which was smeared on the flower garland of Krishna while he was pressing the breast of some other girl, who is my competitor. You feel very proud because of having touched that garland, and your mustaches have become reddish. You have come here carrying a message for me, anxious to touch my feet. But my dear bumblebee, let me warn you, don't touch me. I don't want any messages from your unreliable master. You are the unreliable servant of an unreliable master. It may be that Srimati Radharani purposely addressed that bumblebee sarcastically in order to criticize the messenger Uddhava. Indirectly, Srimati Radharani saw Uddhava as not only resembling Krishna's bodily features, but as being equal to Krishna. In this way she indicated that Uddhava was as unreliable as Krishna himself. Srimati Radharani wanted to give specific reasons why she was dissatisfied with Krishna and his messenger. She addressed the bumblebee. Your master Krishna is exactly of your quality. You sit down on a flower, and after taking a little honey, you immediately fly away and sit in another flower and taste. You're just like your master Krishna. He gave me only once the chance to taste the touch of his lips, and then he left us altogether. I know also that the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, who is always in the midst of the lotus flower, is constantly engaged in Krishna's service. But I do not know how she has become so captivated by Krishna, and why she is so much attached to Krishna, although she knows his actual character. As far as we are concerned, we are more intelligent than that goddess of fortune. We are not going to be cheated any more by Krishna or his messengers. According to expert opinion, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is a subordinate expansion of Srimati Radharani. As Krishna has numerous expansions of Vishnu Murtis, so his pleasure potency, Radharani, also has innumerable expansions of goddesses of fortune. Therefore, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmiji, is always anxious to be elevated to the position of the gopis. Srimati Radharani continued, You foolish bumblebee, you are trying to satisfy me and get a reward by singing the glories of Krishna. But it is a useless attempt. We are bereft of all our possessions. We are away from our homes and families. We know very well about Krishna. We know even more than you. So whatever you make up about him will be old stories to us. Krishna is now in the city and is better known as the friend of Arjuna. He now has many new girlfriends who are no doubt very happy in association with him. Because the lusty, burning sensation of their breasts has been satisfied by Krishna, they are now happy. If you go there and glorify Krishna, they may be pleased to reward you. You are just trying to pacify me by your behavior as a flatterer, and therefore you have put your head under my feet. But I know the trick you are trying to play. I know that you are a messenger coming from a great trickster, Krishna. Therefore, please leave me. I can understand that you are expert in reuniting two opposing parties. But at the same time, you must know that I cannot place my reliance upon you, nor upon your master Krishna. We left our families, husbands, children, and relatives only for Krishna. Yet, he did not feel any obligation in exchange. He has left us for lost. Do you think we can place our faith in him again? We know that Krishna cannot be long without the association of young women. That is his nature. He is finding difficulty in Mathura because he is no longer in the village among innocent cowherd girls. He is in aristocratic society and must be feeling difficulty in making friendships with the young girls. Perhaps you have come here to canvass again, or to take us there. But why should Krishna expect us to go there? He is greatly qualified to entice all young girls, not only in Vrindavan or Mathura, but all over the universe. His wonderfully enchanting smile is so attractive, and the movement of his eyebrows so beautiful, that he can call for any woman from the heavenly, middle, or plutonic planets. Mahalakshmi, the greatest of all goddesses of fortune, also hankers to render him some service. In comparison to all these women of the universe, what are we? We are very insignificant. Krishna advertises himself as magnanimous, and he is praised by great saints. His qualification could be perfectly utilized if he would only show us mercy, for we are downtrodden and neglected by him. You poor messenger, you are only a less intelligent servant. You do not know much about Krishna, how ungrateful and hard-hearted he has been, not only in this life, but in his previous lives also. We have all heard this from our grandmother, Purnamasi. She has informed us that Krishna was born in a Kshatriya family previous to this birth, and was known as Ramachandra. In that birth, instead of killing Vali, an enemy of his friend, in the manner of a Kshatriya, he killed him just like a hunter. A hunter takes a secure hiding place and then kills an animal without facing it. So Lord Ramachandra, as a Kshatriya, should have fought with Vali face to face. But instigated by his friend, he killed him from behind a tree. Thus he deviated from the religious principles of a Kshatriya. Also, he was so attracted by the beauty of Sita that he converted Shurpanaka, the sister of Ravan, into an ugly woman by cutting off her nose and ears. Shurpanaka proposed an intimate relationship with him, and as a Kshatriya he should have satisfied her. But he was so henpecked that he could not forget Sita Devi, and converted Shurpanaka into an ugly woman. Before that birth as a Kshatriya, he took his birth as a Brahmin boy known as Vamanadev, and asked charity from Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj was so magnanimous that he gave him whatever he had. Yet Krishna, as Vamanadev, ungratefully arrested him just like a crow and pushed him down to the Patala kingdom. We know all about Krishna and how ungrateful he is. But here is the difficulty. In spite of his being so cruel and hard-hearted, it is very difficult for us to give up talking about him. Not only are we unable to give up this talk, but great sages and saintly persons also engage in talking about him. We gopis of Vrindavan do not want to make any more friendships with this blackish boy, but we do not know how we shall be able to give up remembering and talking about his activities. Since Krishna is absolute, his so-called unkind activities are as relishable as his kind activities. Saintly persons and great devotees like the gopis cannot give up Krishna in any circumstances. Lord Chaitanya therefore prayed, "Krishna, you are free and independent in all respects. You can either embrace me or crush me under your feet, whatever you like. You may make me broken-hearted by not letting me see you throughout my whole life, but you are my only object of love." In my opinion, Srimati Radharani continued, one should not hear about Krishna, because as soon as a drop of the nectar of his transcendental activities is poured into the ear, one immediately rises above the duality of attraction and rejection. Being completely freed from the contamination of material attachment, one gives up attachment for this material world, family, home, wife, children, and everything materially dear to every person. Being deprived of all material acquisitions, one makes his relatives and himself unhappy. Then he wanders in search of Krishna, either as a human being or in other species of life, even as a bird, and voluntarily accepts the profession of a mendicant. It is very difficult to actually understand Krishna, his name, his quality, his form, his pastimes, his paraphernalia, and his entourage. Srimati Radharani continued to speak to the black messenger of Krishna. Please do not talk any more about Krishna. It is better to talk about something else. We are already doomed like the black-spotted she-deer in the forest, who are enchanted by the sweet musical vibration of the hunter. In the same way, we have been enchanted by the sweet words of Krishna, and again we are thinking of the rays of his toenails. We are becoming more and more lustful for his association. Therefore, I request you not to talk of Krishna anymore. This talk of Radharani with the bumblebee messenger, her accusing Krishna, and at the same time her inability to give up talking about him, are symptoms of the topmost transcendental ecstasy called Mahabhav. The ecstatic Mahabhav manifestation is possible only in the persons of Radharani and her associates. Great acharyas like Srila Rupa Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur have analyzed these Mahabhav speeches of Srimati Radharani, and they have described the different sentiments such as Udgurna or bewilderment and Jalpa Pratijalpa or talking in different ways. In Radharani are found the signs of Ujjval or the brightest jewel of love of God. While Radharani was talking with the bee and the bee was flying hither and thither, it all of a sudden disappeared from her sight. She was in full mourning due to separation from Krishna and felt ecstasy by talking with the bee. But as soon as the bee disappeared, she became almost mad, thinking that the messenger bee might have returned to Krishna to inform him all about her talking against him. Krishna must be very sorry to hear it, she thought. In this way, she was overwhelmed by another type of ecstasy. In the meantime, the bee, flying hither and thither, appeared before her again. She thought, Krishna is still kind to me. In spite of the messengers carrying disruptive messages, he is so kind that he has again sent the bee to take me to him. Srimati Radharani was very careful this time not to say anything against Krishna. "My dear friend, I welcome you," she said. "Krishna is so kind that he has again sent you. Krishna is so kind and affectionate to me that he has fortunately sent you back in spite of your carrying my message against him. My dear friend, you may ask from me whatever you want. I shall give you anything because you are so kind to me. You have come to take me to Krishna because he is not able to come here. He is surrounded by new girlfriends in Mathura. But you are a tiny creature. How can you take me there? How will you be able to help me in meeting Krishna while he is taking rest there with the goddess of fortune and embracing her to his chest?" "Oh, never mind. Let us forget all these things about my going there or sending you. Please let me know how Krishna is faring in Mathura. Tell me if he still remembers his foster father, Nanda Maharaj, his affectionate mother, Yashoda, his cowherd friends, and his poor friends like us, the gopis. I am sure he must sometimes sing about us. We served him just like maidservants without any payment. Is there any possibility that Krishna will come back and place his arms around us? His limbs, they are always fragrant with the Guru's scent. Please put all these inquiries to Krishna." Uddhava was standing near, and he heard Radharani talking in this way, as if she had become almost mad for Krishna. He was exceedingly surprised at how the gopis were accustomed to think of Krishna constantly in that topmost ecstasy of Mahabhav love. He had brought a message in writing from Krishna, and now he wanted to present it before the gopis just to pacify them. He said, "My dear gopis, your mission of human life is now successful. You are all wonderful devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore you are eligible to be worshipped by all kinds of people. You are worshipable throughout the three worlds because your minds are wonderfully absorbed in the thought of Vasudeva, Krishna. He is the goal of all pious activities and ritualistic performances, such as giving charity, rigidly following the austerity of vows, undergoing severe penances, and igniting the fire of sacrifice. He is the purpose behind the chanting of different mantras, the reading of the Vedas, controlling the senses, and concentrating the mind in meditation. These are some of the many different processes for self-realization and attainment of perfection of life. But actually, they are meant only for realizing Krishna and dovetailing oneself in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead." This is the last instruction of Bhagavad Gita also. Although there are descriptions of different processes of self-realization, at the end, Krishna recommended one give up everything and simply surrender unto him. All other processes are meant for teaching one how to surrender ultimately unto the lotus feet of Krishna. The Bhagavad Gita also says that this surrendering process is completed by a sincere person executing the processes of self-realization in wisdom and austerity after many births. Since the perfection of such austerity was completely manifested in the lives of the gopis, Uddhava was fully satisfied upon seeing their transcendental position. He continued, "My dear gopis, the mentality you have developed in relationship with Krishna is very, very difficult to attain, even for great sages and saintly persons. You have attained the highest perfectional stage of life. It is a great boon for you that you have fixed your minds upon Krishna and have decided to have Krishna only, giving up your families, homes, relatives, husbands, and children for the sake of the Supreme Personality. Because your minds are now fully absorbed in Krishna, the Supreme Soul, universal love has automatically developed in you. I think myself very fortunate that I have been favored by your grace to see you in this situation. When Uddhava said that he had a message from Krishna, the gopis were more interested in hearing the message than in hearing about their exalted position. They did not very much like being praised for their high position. They showed their anxiety to hear the message Uddhava had brought from Krishna. Uddhava said, "My dear gopis, I am especially deputed to carry this message to you, who are such great and gentle devotees. Krishna has specifically sent me to you because I am his most confidential servitor." Uddhava did not deliver to the gopis the written message brought from Krishna, but he personally read it to them. The message was very gravely written, so that not only the gopis, but all empiric philosophers might understand how pure love of God is intrinsically integrated with all the different energies of the Supreme Lord. From Vedic information, it is understood that the Supreme Lord has multi-energies. Parasya Shaktiya Vividaiva Suryate. Also, the gopis were such intimate personal friends of Krishna that while he was writing the message for them, he was moved and could not write distinctly. Uddhava, as a student of Brihaspati, had very sharp intelligence, so instead of handing over the written message, he thought it wise to read it personally and explain it to them. Uddhava continued, "These are the words of the personality of Godhead. My dear gopis, my dear friends, please know that separation between ourselves is impossible at any time, at any place, or under any circumstances, because I am all-pervading. This all-pervasiveness of Krishna is explained in the Bhagavad Gita in both the 9th and 7th chapters. Krishna is all-pervasive in his impersonal feature. Everything rests in him, but he is not personally present everywhere. In the 7th chapter, it is also stated that the 5 gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, and sky, and the 3 subtle elements, mind, intelligence, and ego, are all his inferior energies. But there is another superior energy, which is called the living entity. The living entities are also directly part and parcel of Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is the source of both the material and spiritual energies. He is always intermingled with everything as cause and effect. Not only the gopis, but all living entities are always inseparably connected with Krishna in all circumstances. The gopis, however, are perfectly and thoroughly in cognition of this relationship with Krishna, whereas the living entities, under the spell of Maya, are forgetful of Krishna and think themselves separate identities, having no connection with him. Love of Krishna, or Krishna consciousness, is therefore the perfection of real knowledge in understanding things as they are. Our minds can never be vacant. The mind is constantly occupied with some kind of thought, and the subject matter of such thought cannot be outside the 8 elements of Krishna's energy. One who knows this philosophical aspect of all thoughts is actually a wise man and he surrenders unto Krishna. The gopis are the epitome of this perfectional stage of knowledge. They are not simple mental speculators. Their minds are always in Krishna. The mind is nothing but the energy of Krishna. Actually, any person who can think, feel, act, and will cannot be separated from Krishna. But the stage in which he can understand his eternal relationship is called Krishna consciousness. The diseased condition in which he cannot understand his eternal relationship with Krishna is the contaminated stage, or Maya. Since the gopis are on the platform of pure transcendental knowledge, their minds are always filled with Krishna consciousness. For example, there is no separation between fire and air. There is no separation between Krishna and the living entity. When the living entities forget Krishna, they are not in their normal condition. As for the gopis, because they are always thinking of Krishna, they are on the absolute stage of perfection in knowledge. The so-called empiric philosophers sometimes think that the path of bhakti is meant for the less intelligent. But unless the so-called man of knowledge comes to the platform of bhakti, his knowledge is certainly impure and imperfect. Actually, the stage of perfecting one's eternal relationship with Krishna is love in separation. But that is also illusory because there is no separation. The gopis were not situated in that illusory condition of life. So even from the philosophical point of view, for them there was no separation. The cosmic manifestation is also not separate from Krishna, who has said, "Nothing is separate from me. The whole cosmic manifestation is resting on me and is not separate from me. Before the creation, I was existing." This is confirmed in the Vedic literature. Before creation, there was only Narayan. There was no Brahma and no Shiva. Eko Narayana Asin na Brahma na Ishana. The whole cosmic manifestation is manipulated by the three modes of material nature. It is said that Brahma, the incarnation of the quality of passion, created this universe. But Brahma is the secondary creator. The original creator is Narayan. This is also confirmed by Shankaracharya, Narayana Paro Vyaktat. Narayan is transcendental, beyond this cosmic creation. Krishna creates, maintains, and annihilates the whole cosmic manifestation by expanding himself in different incarnations. Everything is Krishna, and everything depends on Krishna, but he is not perceived in the material energy called Maya or illusion. In the spiritual energy, however, Krishna is perceived at every step, in all circumstances. This perfectional stage of understanding is represented by the gopis. As Krishna is always aloof from the cosmic manifestation, although it is completely dependent on him, so a living entity is also completely aloof from his material conditional life, although the material body has developed on the basis of spiritual existence. In the Bhagavad Gita, the whole cosmic manifestation is accepted as the mother of the living entities, and Krishna is the father. As the father impregnates the mother by injecting the living entity within the womb, Krishna injects all the living entities into the womb of the material nature. They come out in different bodies according to their different fruitive activities. But in all circumstances, the living entity is aloof from this material, conditional life. If we simply study our own bodies, we can understand how a living entity is always aloof from this bodily engagement. Every action of the body takes place by the interactions of the three modes of material nature. We can see at every moment many changes taking place in our bodies, but the spirit soul is aloof from all changes. One can neither create, nor annihilate, nor interfere with the actions of material nature. The living entity is therefore entrapped by the material body and conditioned in three stages, namely while awake, asleep, and unconscious. The mind acts throughout all three conditions of life. The living entity in his sleeping or dreaming condition sees something as real, and when awake he sees the same thing as unreal. It is concluded, therefore, that under certain circumstances he accepts something as real, and under other circumstances he accepts the very same thing as unreal. These matters are the subject of study for the empiric philosopher or the Sankhya Yogi. To come to the right conclusion, Sankhya Yogis undergo severe austerities and penances. They practice control of the senses and renunciation. All these different ways of determining the ultimate goal of life are compared to rivers. Krishna is the ocean. As the rivers flow down toward the ocean, all attempts for knowledge flow toward Krishna. After many, many births of endeavor, when one actually comes to Krishna, he attains the perfectional stage. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, "All are pursuing the path of realizing me, but those who have adopted courses without any bhakti find their endeavor very troublesome." Klesho dikataras tesham. Krishna cannot be understood unless one comes to the point of bhakti. Three paths are enunciated in the Gita: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Those who are too addicted to fruitive activities are advised to perform actions which will bring them to bhakti. Those who are addicted to the frustration of empiric philosophy are also advised to act in such a way that they will realize bhakti. Karma Yoga is different from ordinary karma, and Jnana Yoga is different from ordinary jnana. Ultimately, as stated by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktya mam abhajanati, only through execution of devotional service can one understand Krishna. The perfectional stage of devotional service was achieved by the gopis, because they did not care to know anything but Krishna. It is confirmed in the Vedas, Yasman eva vigyate sarvam eva vigyatam bhavati. This means that simply by knowing Krishna, one automatically acquires all other knowledge. In his message to the gopis, Krishna continued, "Transcendental knowledge of the Absolute is no longer necessary for you. You were accustomed to love me from the very beginning of your lives. Knowledge of the absolute truth is specifically required for persons who want liberation from material existence. But one who has attained love for Krishna is already on the platform of liberation. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, anyone engaged in unalloyed devotional service is to be considered situated on the transcendental platform of liberation. The gopis did not actually feel any pangs of material existence, but they felt separation of Krishna. Krishna therefore said, "My dear gopis, to increase your super excellent love for me, I have purposely separated myself from you, so that you may be in constant meditation on me." The gopis are in the perfectional stage of meditation. Yogis are generally more fond of meditating than of executing devotional service to the Lord, but they do not know that the perfection of the yoga system is the attainment of devotion. This constant meditation on Krishna by the gopis is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita to be the topmost yoga. Krishna knew very well the psychology of women. When a woman's beloved is away, she thinks of him more in meditation than when he is present before her. Krishna wanted to teach through the behavior of the gopis that one who is constantly in trance, like the gopis, surely attains the lotus feet of Krishna. Lord Chaitanya taught people in general the method of Vipralamba Seva, which is the method of rendering service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the feeling of separation. The 6 Goswamis also taught worship of Krishna in the feeling of the gopis in separation. The prayers of Srinivasacharya about the Goswamis explain these matters very clearly. Srinivasacharya said that the Goswamis were always absorbed in the ocean of transcendental feelings in the mood of the gopis. When they lived in Vrindavan, they were searching for Krishna, crying, "Where is Krishna? Where are the gopis? Where are you, Srimati Radharani?" They never said, "We have now seen Radha and Krishna, and therefore our mission is fulfilled." Their mission remained always unfulfilled. They never met Radha and Krishna. At the time of the Ras dance, those gopis who could not join the Ras Leela with Krishna gave up their bodies simply by thinking of him. Absorption in Krishna consciousness by feelings of separation is thus the quickest method for attainment of the lotus feet of Krishna. By the personal statement of Krishna, the gopis were convinced about the strength of feelings of separation. They were actually experiencing the supernatural method of Krishna worship, and were much relieved by understanding that Krishna was not away from them, but always with them. The gopis therefore received Uddhava very happily and began to speak as follows. We have heard that King Kamsa, who was always a source of trouble for the Yadu dynasty, has now been killed. This is good news for us. We hope, therefore, that the members of the Yadu dynasty are very happy in the association of Krishna, who can fulfill all the desires of his devotees. My dear Uddhava, kindly let us know whether Krishna sometimes thinks of us while in the midst of highly enlightened society girls in Mathura. We know that the women and girls in Mathura are not village women. They are enlightened and beautiful. Their bashful, smiling glances and other feminine features must be very pleasing to Krishna. We know very well that Krishna is always fond of the behavior of beautiful women. It seems, therefore, that he has been entrapped by the women of Mathura. My dear Uddhava, will you kindly let us know if Krishna sometimes remembers us while in the midst of other women? Another gopi inquired, does he remember that night in the midst of Kumuda flowers and moonlight when Vrindavan became exceedingly beautiful? Krishna was dancing with us, and the atmosphere was surcharged with the sound of footbells. We exchanged pleasing conversation then. Does he remember that particular night? We remember that night, and we feel separation. Separation from Krishna makes us agitated, as if there were fire in our bodies. Does he propose to come back to Vrindavan to extinguish that fire, just as a cloud appears in the sky to extinguish a forest fire by its downpour? Another gopi said, Krishna has killed his enemy, and he has victoriously achieved the kingdom of Kamsa. Maybe he is married with a king's daughter by this time, and living happily among his kinsmen and friends. Therefore, why should he come to this village of Vrindavan? Another gopi said, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the husband of the goddess of fortune, and he is self-sufficient. He has no business either with us, the girls in the Vrindavan forest, or with the city girls in Mathura. He is the great super soul. He has nothing to do with any of us, either here or there. Another gopi said, it is an unreasonable hope for us to expect Krishna to come back to Vrindavan. We should try instead to be happy in disappointment. Even Pingala, the great prostitute, said that disappointment is the greatest pleasure. We all know these things, but it is very difficult for us to give up the expectation of Krishna's coming back. Who can forget a solitary conversation with Krishna, on whose breast the goddess of fortune always remains, in spite of Krishna's not desiring her? My dear Uddhava, Vrindavan is the land of rivers, forests, and cows. Here the vibration of the flute was heard, and Krishna, along with his elder brother Sri Balaram, enjoyed the atmosphere in our company. Thus the environment of Vrindavan constantly reminds us of Krishna and Balaram. The impressions of his footprints are on the land of Vrindavan, which is the residence of the goddess of fortune, and because of such signs, we cannot forget Krishna. The gopis further expressed that Vrindavan was still full of all opulence and good fortune. There was no scarcity or want in Vrindavan as far as material necessities were concerned. But in spite of such opulence, they could not forget Krishna and Balaram. We constantly remember various attractive features of beautiful Krishna, his walking, his smiling, and his joking words. We have all become lost by the dealings of Krishna, and it is impossible for us to forget him. We always pray for him, exclaiming, "Dear Lord, dear husband of the goddess of fortune, dear Lord of Vrindavan, and deliverer of the distressed devotees, we are now fallen and merged into an ocean of distress. Please, therefore, come back to Vrindavan and deliver us from this pitiable condition." Uddhava minutely studied the transcendental abnormal condition of the gopis in their separation from Krishna, and he thought it wise to repeat all the pastimes of Sri Krishna over and over again. Materialistic persons are always burning in a blazing fire of material miseries. The gopis were burning in a transcendental blazing fire due to separation from Krishna. The blazing fire exasperating the gopis, however, is different from the fire of the material world. The gopis constantly want the association of Krishna, whereas the materialistic person constantly wants the advantage of material comforts. It is stated by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that Krishna saved the cowherd boys from the blazing forest fire within a second while their eyes were closed. Similarly, Uddhava advised the gopis that they could be saved from the fire of separation by closing their eyes and meditating on the activities of Krishna from the very beginning of their association with him. From the outside, the gopis could visualize all the pastimes of Krishna by hearing the description of Uddhava, and from within they could remember those pastimes. From the instructions of Uddhava, the gopis could understand that Krishna was not separate from them. As they were constantly thinking of Krishna, Krishna was also thinking of them constantly at Mathura. Uddhava's messages and instructions saved the gopis from immediate death, and the gopis acknowledged the benediction from Uddhava. Uddhava practically acted as the preceptor spiritual master of the gopis, and they in return worshipped him as they would worship Krishna. It is recommended in authoritative scriptures that the spiritual master be worshipped on the level of the Supreme Personality of Godhead because of being his very confidential servitor. And it is accepted by great authorities that the spiritual master is the external manifestation of Krishna. The gopis were relieved from their transcendental burning condition by realizing that Krishna was with them. Internally, they remembered his association within their hearts, and externally, Uddhava helped them appreciate Krishna by conclusive instructions. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described in the Scriptures as Adhoksaja, which indicates that he is beyond the perception of all material senses. Although beyond the material senses, he is present in everyone's heart. At the same time, he is present everywhere by his all-pervasive feature of Brahman. One can realize all three transcendental features of the Absolute Truth: Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead; Paramatma, the localized Supersoul; and the all-pervasive Brahman, simply by studying the condition of the gopis in their meeting with Uddhava as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is said by Srinivasacharya that the 6 Goswamis were always merged in thoughts of the activities of the gopis. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also recommended the gopis' method of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead as super excellent. Srila Shukdev Goswami has also recommended that anyone who hears from the right source about the dealings of the gopis with Krishna and who follows the instructions will be elevated to the topmost position of devotional service and be able to give up the lust of material enjoyment. All the gopis were solaced by the instructions of Uddhava, and they requested him to stay in Vrindavan for a few days more. Uddhava agreed to their proposal and stayed with them not only for a few days, but for a few months. He always kept them engaged in thinking of the transcendental message of Krishna and his pastimes. And the gopis felt as if they were experiencing direct association with Krishna. While Uddhava remained in Vrindavan, the inhabitants enjoyed his association. As they discussed the activities of Krishna, the days passed just like moments. Vrindavan's natural atmosphere, with the presence of the river Yamuna, its nice orchards of trees decorated with various fruits, Govardhan Hill, caves, blooming flowers, they all combined to inspire Uddhava to narrate Krishna's pastimes. The inhabitants enjoyed Uddhava's association in the same way as they enjoyed the association of Krishna. Uddhava was attracted by the attitude of the gopis because they were completely attached to Krishna, and he was inspired by the gopis' anxiety for Krishna. He began to offer them his respectful obeisances and composed songs in praise of their transcendental qualities as follows. Among all the living entities who have accepted the human form of life, the gopis are super excellently successful in their mission. Their thought is eternally absorbed in the lotus feet of Krishna. Great sages and saintly persons also try to be absorbed in meditation on the lotus feet of Krishna, who is Mukunda himself, the giver of liberation. But the gopis, having lovingly accepted the Lord, are automatically accustomed to this and do not depend on any yogic practice. The conclusion is that one who has attained the gopis' condition of life does not have to take birth as Lord Brahma, or be born in a Brahmin family, or be initiated as a Brahmin. Sri Uddhava confirmed Lord Krishna's statement in Bhagavad Gita that one who takes shelter of him for the right purpose, be he a Shudra or lower, will attain the highest goal of life. The gopis have set the standard of devotion for the whole world. By following in the footsteps of the gopis, by constantly thinking of Krishna, one can attain the highest perfectional stage of spiritual life. The gopis were born not of any highly cultured family, but of cowherd men, yet they developed the highest love of Krishna. For self-realization or God-realization, there is no need to take birth in a high family. The only thing needed is ecstatic development of love of God. In achieving perfection in Krishna consciousness, no other qualification is required than to be constantly engaged in the loving service of Krishna, the supreme nectar, the reservoir of all pleasure. The effect of taking up Krishna consciousness is just like that of drinking nectar. With or without one's knowledge, it will act. The active principle of Krishna consciousness will equally manifest itself everywhere. It does not matter how and where one has taken his birth. Krishna will bestow his benediction upon anyone who takes to Krishna consciousness without any doubt. The supreme benediction attained by the gopis, in spite of their being born in the families of cowherd men, was never attained even by the goddess of fortune herself, and certainly not by the denizens of heaven, though the bodily scent of the women there is exactly like the scent of the lotus. The gopis are so fortunate that during Ras Leela, Krishna personally embraced them with his arms. Krishna kissed them face to face. Certainly it is not possible for any women in the three worlds to achieve this except the gopis. Uddhava appreciated the exalted position of the gopis and wished to fall down and take the dust of their feet on his head. Yet he dared not ask the gopis to offer the dust from their feet. Perhaps they would not be agreeable. Therefore, to have his head smeared with the dust of the gopis' feet without their knowledge, he desired to become only an insignificant clump of grass or herbs in the land of Vrindavan. The gopis were so much attracted to Krishna that when they heard the vibration of his flute, they instantly left their homes, families, children, honor, and feminine bashfulness, and ran towards the place where Krishna was standing. They did not consider whether they were passing over the road or through the jungles. Imperceptibly, the dust of their feet was bestowed on small grasses and herbs of Vrindavan. Not daring to place the dust of the gopis' feet on his own head in this life, Uddhava aspired to have a future birth in the position of a clump of grass or herbs. He would then be able to have the dust of the gopis' feet. Uddhava appreciated the extraordinary fortune of the gopis, who relieved themselves of all material contamination by placing on their high, beautiful breasts the lotus feet of Krishna, which are worshipped not only by the goddess of fortune, but by such exalted demigods as Brahma and Lord Shiva, and which great yogis meditate upon within their hearts. Thus Uddhava desired to be able to constantly pray to be honored by the dust of the gopis' lotus feet. The gopis' chanting of the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna has become celebrated all over the three worlds. After living in Vrindavan for some days, Uddhava desired to go back to Krishna, and he begged permission to leave from Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda. He had a farewell meeting with the gopis, and taking permission from them also, he mounted his chariot to start for Mathura. When Uddhava was about to leave, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan headed by Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda, came to bid him goodbye and presented him with various kinds of valuable goods secured in Vrindavan. They expressed their feelings with tears in their eyes due to intense attachment for Krishna. All of them desired a benediction from Uddhava. They desired always to remember the glorious activities of Krishna and wanted their minds always fixed upon his lotus feet, their words always engaged in glorifying Krishna, and their bodies always engaged in bowing down as they constantly remembered him. This prayer of the inhabitants of Vrindavan is the super excellent type of self-realization. The method is very simple: to fix the mind always on the lotus feet of Krishna, to talk always of Krishna without passing on to any other subject matter, and to engage the body in Krishna's service constantly. Specifically, in this human form of life, one should engage his life, resources, words, and intelligence for the service of the Lord. Only such activities can elevate a human being to the highest level of perfection. This is the verdict of all authorities. The inhabitants of Vrindavan said, "By the will of the Supreme Authority, and according to the results of our own work, we may take our birth anywhere. It doesn't matter where we are born, but our only prayer is that we may simply be engaged in Krishna consciousness." A pure devotee of Lord Krishna never desires to be promoted to the heavenly planets or even to Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan, because he has no desire for his own personal satisfaction. A pure devotee regards both heaven and hell to be on an equal level. Without Krishna, heaven is hell, and with Krishna, hell is heaven. When Uddhava had sufficiently honored the worship of the pure devotees of Vrindavan, he returned to Mathura and to his master Krishna. After offering respects by bowing down before Lord Krishna and Balaram, he described the wonderful devotional life of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. He presented all the gifts given by the inhabitants of Vrindavan to Vasudeva, the father of Krishna, and Ugrasen, Krishna's grandfather. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the second volume, 12th chapter of Krishna, Delivery of the Message of Krishna to the Gopis.